I buried Nora on a Tuesday, because that was the day the cemetery man could do it, and because the dogwoods on Sycamore Street were finally starting to bloom. She always said the dogwoods made our corner of Ashwood, North Carolina, feel like a postcard someone meant to send. After the graveside prayers, after the casseroles, after the last of the neighbors drifted away with paper plates and soft voices, I stood in our kitchen and rested my hand on the cool edge of the sink. The late sun found the glass wind chime. Nora loved and threw rainbows on the wall. "Dad," Jenna said behind me. Her voice had that careful, overly bright tone people put on when there's a script in their pocket. Our son Lucas stood at her shoulder with his arms folded like he was guarding a door only he could see. Jenna's husband, Trevor, hovered by the island, picking at the label on a bottle of seltzer. Lucas's girlfriend, Kayla, had already moved a stack of mail from the counter and was sorting it like she had been designated the house manager. Yes. I kept looking at the sunlight. It seemed wrong to look away. Jenna cleared her throat. "We should talk about logistics. About the house." Lucas laughed. The sound hit the room like a fork dropped too hard on a plate. "There's not a lot to talk about," he said. "Old man, leave this house. It's ours now." Kayla smirked. "We're just being practical, Ray. It's what Nora would have wanted." The refrigerator hummed. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Camp's beagle down the block give one of his lazy afternoon barks. In the corner of the kitchen, between the calendar with Nora's careful handwriting and the ceramic jar we keep wooden spoons in, the wind chime sent one last triangle of light across the wall and then went quiet. I stayed silent. This is a thing I learned in 50 years with a woman who believed the right words could fix a day. Silence sometimes has more shape than speaking. In the pocket of my jacket, folded so many times it had softened like fabric, was the letter Nora left me. The letter with the line I had read 100 times in the week since the doctor said there was nothing more to do. "What I left you is bigger than any house," she wrote. "Trust what we raised." "Come on," Lucas said, impatient with my stillness. "We'll keep you in the loop. But it's better for you to get somewhere easier, ranch style, no stairs. We could get good money for this place. Split it. Pay off some things we need to pay off. Win-win." "We love you, Dad," Jenna added, as if love were a seasoning you could throw into a pot to cover whatever else you had put in there. I turned my head and looked at them in the light Nora left me. I saw the little boy who cried when he lost his red toy truck in the backyard grass for an afternoon, and then cupped it to his chest when I found it like it had come back from war. I saw the little girl who read books with her feet up on the arm of the couch, who would look up at me every so often just to confirm I was there. I also saw adults who had learned the wrong things from a world that rewards shouting and speed. Did not answer. I couldn't have, even if I wanted to. There are days your mouth chooses for you. They filled the space with their plans because silence makes some people itchy. They talked about realtors and comps, and this zip code is hot and we should move fast while the market's still up. Trevor threw in a fact about interest rates he had read on his phone 15 minutes earlier like he was dropping a coin into a jar we would all admire. Kayla described a senior community in a voice that made me picturing pastel carpets and a smell of lemon cleaner and televisions turned up too loud. "How about we sleep?" I said finally. "We can talk in the morning," Lucas rolled his eyes, trying to help. "The day after you bury your wife is not the day to fight your children. Later, if necessary. Not today. Today I made a little plate of funeral food and ate half of it and put the rest in the fridge like doing something normal could be a prayer. Then I went up the back stairs and put my hand on the door jamb where we had marked heights in pencil over 30 years and read our names: Ray 511, 1988, Nora 55, 1990, Lucas 61, 2005, Jenna 56. 2001, and I cried into my hands quietly because old men cry like the house is listening. That night, after the small noises of other people, I loved too much and in the wrong ways, settled into separate rooms. I sat at Nora's dressing table. She had taped a postcard there from the Blue Ridge Parkway, dog-eared from years of being moved around, to dust and then put back. Tucked under the edge of the glass, just where her brush would push little hairs every morning, was a narrow key, brass-worn slick, where fingers had touched it. There was a note wrapped around the key. My name, in her careful block letters. Underneath. First Federal. Safety deposit. The banker is Mr. DeMarco. Bring your license and no one else. I held it against my heart like a sacrament. The First Federal Bank in downtown Ashwood is the sort of building that looks like it wants you to be quiet. Pillars, the whisper of carpet. Men with ties that match something you can't see. Mr. DeMarco was younger than I expected. Early 40s. Neat beard, a suit that fit him too well to be. Bought in Ashwood. Shook my hand like he meant it. Mr. Hart, he said, very sorry for your loss. Mrs. Hart left instructions. He said left the way a pastor says gone gentle, with a little space around it. In the vault, he handed me a thin, long metal box, and then disappeared, like these things were supposed to be private between the living and the dead. In the box was a leather portfolio that smelled like Nora's closet. Inside the portfolio were 3 things. One was an envelope with my name on it. One was a stack of papers with numbers that made my eyes adjust. The third was a photograph of me and Nora standing in front of a corrugated steel building with a sign that read Blue Ridge Mini Storage, 1996 hand-lettered underneath. I opened the letter first. Ray. If you're reading this, you made it past the worst day. The next days will be different kinds of worsts, but you'll find your way. You always do. I put a key under the glass because I knew you'd sit there at my table and look at your face and wonder who you are now. You are still you. You are still the man who fixed the washing machine with duct tape and prayer in 1989, and then did it, right the next day. You are still the man who brought me coffee when I said I didn't need it, and then watched me drink all of it. You are still the man who danced me in this kitchen when the radio played Sam Cooke and the onions were just about to burn. You know about Blue Ridge Storage? You know how I took Aunt Joan's little inheritance and put it into those first 2 units out on Route 14 with my friend Henry Sloan when the kids were little and we were still too dumb to know what could go wrong? Well, Henry and I just signed a letter of intent. Real one, not like those scam emails. There's a REIT that's a real estate investment trust. It's the kind of thing a person sees in the back of a magazine and wonders if it's a triangle that wants to buy us. They want the land, the leases, the rolling monthly income, the whole thing. It's not pie in the sky. It's good. I put my shares TOD transfer on death to you. The payout is bigger than any house we ever lived in, Ray. I didn't tell the kids because people get weird around numbers. I want you to have the power to say no when no is the right thing. Right. I want you to be able to say yes when you mean it, not because you're scared. I created the Nora Hart Foundation with Allison Whitaker. You remember Allison from church? She's a lawyer and also a friend who keeps secrets and knows how to fill out forms. The foundation is about 3 things we care about. Scholarships. For kids from Ashwood who don't have a straight path. Fund for hospice nurses because if anyone is a saint on earth, it's them. And if you want it, money to turn our Sycamore Street house into a community place someday when you're ready to leave it. The foundation is irrevocable. That means you can't change the beneficiaries even if our son comes in hot with a new story or our daughter looks at you with those eyes. We will help them in other ways if they show up as their better selves. Allison will explain. She'll also tell you about the life estate. That means they can never push you out. I love you too much to leave that to chance. You always said, hey. Man should be measured by where he puts his hands and where he keeps his promises. I put my hands on this because it felt like what we spent our lives making. Take the box of pictures from the attic to Allison too. She'll know why. Eat something. Take a walk around the block and count the dogwoods. If Lucas and Jenna get loud, breathe through your nose and call me in your head an old fool. It always made me laugh when you did that. Nora P.S. The last page is for you. Don't show anybody until you know who you're talking to. My hands shook. It might have been the cold of the vault. It might have been everything all at once. I lifted the stack of papers. There were schedules and terms and a number at the bottom that felt like it should come with a siren. The last page was handwritten. Nora's looping script. Private the way her grocery list always had little hearts next to powdered sugar. The last page was not numbers. It was a list of names. People. Students of mine from the years I worked at the high school who had fallen off the map. The guy from the hardware store whose wife had cancer. The mail carrier who always tucked our packages under the bench when it rained. the list of people to notice. Beside each name was a little note. Can't afford winter coats for boys. Winds up short the week before payday. Lost her mom last year. Bring flowers in July. It's bigger than any house, she wrote at the top. Don't forget I put the papers back in the portfolio and took it under my arm like a baby. Mr. DeMarco didn't ask anything when I came out. He just touched the edge of his desk with his fingers like he was straightening something that had never been crooked. Mrs. Hart also left authorization for you to open a new safe deposit box today, he said. If you like another one? I tried to make a joke of it. How many secrets did she hand you? He smiled. Only good ones. After the bank, I walked to Whitaker and Lane Attorneys at Law on Poplar Avenue, because you can do 3 hard things in a day if one of them is easy. Allison wrapped me in a hug that broke something open in my chest, and then sat me down with coffee, as if coffee could mop up grief. I'm not good at this. I said, no one is, she said, but you're better than most. She had everything. Ready? Of course she did. People like Allison make notes and put tabs on pages and set aside tissues like they've learned the rituals of sorrow and paperwork intertwine. She went through the basics. Blue Ridge Storage Henry called this morning, she said, just to check on you and the letter of intent, which 2 other firms had read and approved. The life insurance, not the little policy I had been paying on for 30 years out of habit, but the one Henry had convinced Nora to take when they signed a loan years ago, because he was the kind of friend who thought 3 doors down the hall. A number that would cushion me if the storage deal fell through. The foundation filed, funded with a seed amount, ready to receive more once the sale went through. And the thing she turned the page for, and paused before, like a pause could be a cushion, the deed of our house, already drafted into the Nora Hart Trust with a life estate reserved for me. You can live there as long as you live, Allison said. No one can force you out. Not the kids, not a creditor, not a board judge with a grudge. When you choose to leave, the house goes to the foundation unless you change that with me now and not later. Why not the kids? I asked. Though I knew the answer, and so did Allison, because Nora wanted the house to be what it was for these 40 years. Allison said softly, a place where people can sit at the table and breathe, she thought. She stopped because lawyers don't like to say thought. She hoped it could be used. Maybe for families who need a place to stay while someone's in the hospital. Maybe for a reading room like she used to talk about. She didn't want it flipped. She didn't want it to be about market value. She wanted it to be about value. She left me a list, I said, of people to help. Allison's face did something that looked like the shadow of a smile and the echo of a sob. Of course she did. Lucas and Jenna, I started Allison. Held up a hand, I know. Nora knew which way their wind was blowing. We talked about them a lot, and I asked the question I have to ask. Do you want me to tie this beyond their reach? She said yes. That doesn't mean you can't help them in other ways. It means they won't be able to hold you hostage with their fear. What happens, I said, if they try, and they get to meet the county recorder's stamp? Allison said, and if they get loud, they get to meet Tom. Tom, I asked. Allison pointed with her pen toward the picture window where, across the street, Tom Garner, our neighbor of 25 years and the Ashwood chief of police, was coaxing a cup of coffee out of a truck stop mug. Tom said he'd check in on you. He's bad at retirement. Tom was never good at anything quiet, I said, and my first real laugh in a week surprised both of us. Allison sent me home with a folder thicker than a Bible and instructions to put my feet up for exactly 30 minutes before I did anything. Else, you'll make better decisions with your shoes off, she said. You don't argue with a woman who just moved a mountain on your behalf with a pen and a patient face at home. The middle of the living room, Lucas had set up what looked like a command center. His laptop was open to a listing service. A pad of paper had addresses and numbers. He was pacing while he talked to someone named Austin on speakerphone about square footage and sightlines. Jenna had a mop in her hand and was scrubbing. The same square of floor she'd already scrubbed to give her hands somewhere to put the frustration. She didn't know where to hang. Kayla was standing in front of our wedding photograph, which she had moved from the mantel to the coffee table, as if she were considering whether it fit the brand. Dad, Lucas said. One hand cupped around his phone like he was catching important. We went ahead and got a pre-appraisal just to get a sense of what we're working with. The market is tight. Austin thinks we could get above asking if we list with no contingencies. Great kitchen bones, Kayla added. We'll have to get rid of the curtains. They scream 2009. The curtains are from 1994. Level with the conversation. Your mother picked them out. We have receipts. Lucas grimaced, like I'd said something embarrassing in public. Dad, come on. Don't be sentimental. We're trying to make sure you're set up. Jenna leaned on the mop and looked at the floor like it had betrayed her. We found Mom's old will. The one from before she did. Whatever she did with Allison. It says, we split assets. 50-50. So should be straightforward. I thought of the new will in my folder, the trust documents, the recorder's number Allison had already texted me, the way Nora's handwriting had called me to be braver than I wanted. I thought of the list of kids who needed jackets, the hospice. Nurse Nora wanted to send to Asheville for the conference she never could afford. Bigger than any house. Don't forget I'm hungry, I said. Anyone else hungry? Because sometimes the only way to cross a minefield is to offer sandwiches. I opened the fridge. After a funeral, the fridge is a proof of human kindness. Ham, egg salad, Tupperware with masking tape labels. I made 4 plates, cut the sandwiches diagonal the way Nora always did, put a handful of chips on each. People sat at my table and ate because hands want something to do. Bought me 15 minutes. After dinner, they started again. We can have the photographer here tomorrow, Lucas said. We need you to sign a listing agreement. There's no need to rush, Jenna said to him. To me, she said, Dad, just look it over. Okay, I said, but my okay had more weight in it than it had at lunchtime, at 9:30. Tom Garner knocked on the back door like he always had. He came in without waiting for me to say yes, because that's what 30 Christmases and 2 snow shovels shared between houses will buy you. Ray, like a hand on my shoulder, kids. He nodded at them, like he was acknowledging. Other mammals in the room, and then turned back to me. Sit out back with me a second. We sat on the steps. The air had that early spring bite. Tom handed me a beer and didn't drink his, because he's trying to be perfect now that he doesn't wear a badge. He stared out at the black square of the backyard. I seen cars, he said, and I'm not here to be the neighborhood watch for your grief, but Allison called. Allison calls everyone, I said. He grinned. She calls the right people. You good? I'm in possession of paperwork. We sat in the quiet. If you've never sat with a man who has walked into too many rooms with furniture turned over and pictures broken and learned to say nothing, right up until he says the exact right thing, should know that silence can be medicinal. What? Do you need me to be? He asked finally. Loud, large. Just down the steps. Down the steps, I said. For now, he nodded. The kids are, he flicked his eyes toward the kitchen. Kids, they're grown, I said, grown. And still not done growing, he said. Look, my oldest didn't speak to me for 3 years after I sold the boat. He came back when his son wanted to learn how to tie knots. What I'm saying is, the arc is long if you don't break it. I breathed. They laughed. Of course they did, Tom said softly. They're scared. Fear comes out weird. He went inside and told a story loud enough for the kitchen to hear about the time Nora made him casseroles when his ex-wife left. And then pretended she wasn't doing it so he wouldn't feel like a charity case. He said it like a blessing and then went home. The next day, I went down to the county recorder's office. They have those chairs that make your back hurt on principle, and a clerk named Elsie, who has been there since the bicentennial and knows which stamp means forever. Allison's courier had already dropped papers first thing. I watched the deed pages flip under Elsie's hand, watched her affix the stamp. She handed me a copy. This means they can't push you, she said, not unkindly. People think. Love is a contract. It's more like a garden. Grow it or it goes. When I got home, there was a sign in the front yard. Big one. Nice font. Kayla had chosen it. I pulled it out of the ground slowly, because anger does not need a stage. Dad. Lucas said, half laughing. What are you doing? Taking down a sign, I said. You're being ridiculous, Jenna said, but she said it without heat. She looked tired, like grief was catching up and finally winning. I went to see Allison, said, and set the sign down across the porch rail. Your mother wrote a new will. She put the house in trust. I have a life estate. I live here until I decide I don't. When I'm ready to leave, the house goes to the foundation. That's not me being stubborn. That's me reading the paper. Lucas scoffed. Fine, then we'll get a lawyer. You should, I said. Get a good one. Ask him what a recorded deed means. Jenna sank into a chair like someone had. Let the air out of her. What foundation? The one your mother started, I said. For the things she thought were more important than countertops, scholarships, nurses, people we know who don't have as many people on their side. This is unreal, Kayla said. She couldn't do that to her kids. She did it for her kids, I said, and surprised myself with the anger in my voice. So we wouldn't be the kind of people who measure love in square footage. There was a minute maybe to where no one spoke, and in that minute, I felt something settle in the house. Not victory, something quieter, as if the rooms had been waiting for permission to be themselves again. Lucas left, slammed the door, and then apologized through the door, and then didn't open it again, because he is our son, and he has never known how to end a scene. Jenna put the mop away. Kayla stared out the window like if she looked hard enough, she could see a different future coming up the street. At dinner, Jenna pushed pasta around her plate. I'm sorry, she said finally, to the pasta to me. This feels like you picking a fight with us over a building? It's not a building, I said. It's where your mother and I took our boots off every day for 40 years. It's also just wood. But what Nora left me, it's bigger than the wood. Than any house, she left me instructions, and the means to carry them out. What means? Lucas said from the doorway. He had come back for the part where money might be discussed, is never learned to be subtle. Blue Ridge Storage, I said. Henry's REIT made an offer. Your mother's shares transfer to me, then to the foundation, according to a schedule. There's life insurance. There's enough, Nora's friend Henry, Kayla said, like she'd found a loose thread. That little storage thing off the highway, that can't be worth anything. It's worth more than the house, I said. More than several houses. And it's spoken for. Kayla looked at Lucas like people look at each other when they realize the game on the table is not the game they thought they were playing. I watched that look pass between them and felt a grief that had nothing to do with cemeteries and everything. To do with how a world that taught them to chase easy things had shaved down their capacity for wonder. Too late. Oh, Jenna said under her breath. And I realized she meant it the way a person at a station says it when the train door slides shut. REIT was called Southeastern Storage Partners. And it sounded like the kind of company that would have a handsome logo and a conference room with glass walls. They had glass. Henry wore a tie only because he thought it was funny to see himself in one. His smile said he was still the guy who fixed the rolled door on Unit A3 with borrowed pliers and cussed the whole time. He put his hands on my shoulders when I walked in, then took them off like remembering who he was touching. Nora had me on speed dial this month, he said. You're carrying a weight I wish I could lift. We'll make this part easy. We closed in 6 weeks. In that time, Lucas came by 3 times, each time with a new version of an old argument. The market won't stay hot. He had a friend who could help move things along, was going to be a father, and wouldn't it be great if he and Kayla could raise a family here like we did? You'll be a good dad, I told him. But not in this house. He left angry, came back quiet, left angry again. Came back and stood in the doorway like a boy who'd lost a truck in the grass. Jenna came by with her. Laundry, because our dryer works better, and because she wanted to be near the refrigerator without saying why. She offered to make dinner and then burned the chicken because she cried into the sink. We ate salad and bread and called it winter's dinner, she said one night. Mom's handwriting is everywhere. It's like a trick the universe is playing. I took the spice jar with her label coming, 2017, and put it in her hand. Keep it, I said, even if it's empty. On closing day, Allison took me to lunch after we signed what felt like the paper equivalent of a mountain. She ordered me a burger and told me to eat it like I was 25. Then she slid a thick manila envelope across the table. The first transfer to the foundation, she said. Phase 1, exactly what Nora laid out. Monthly disbursements to your living account as trustee and beneficiary for as long as you live. The big chunk to the foundation over a 10-month schedule, irrevocable after the first. I did what she asked me to do. I looked at the numbers and felt my scalp prickle. People think the heart pounds over a big number. Mine went quiet. As a church, what do you want to do first? She asked. It happened that on the corner of Poplar and 3rd there was a shuttered library branch with a for lease sign that had faded in the sun to nothing.
Ow.
Nora had loved that branch like a person. She used to say the light through the front. Windows made even sad books look like hope. I want that, I said, pointing out the window. I want to check to Catherine Moore. She's one of my old students. She's got 2 boys, Nora wrote. Coats. I tapped the list, folded inside. The leather portfolio, now always in my pocket like a talisman, I promised. You are dangerous with money, Allison said, smiling. We'll write a plan. That night, Lucas came over with beers he couldn't really afford, and the news that he and Kayla were on a waiting list for an apartment with brick walls and a view of a dumpster. I wanted to like her. I still do. She's a person who could be many things if she put down the mirror and picked up a book. We've been thinking, Lucas said, popping the tops like he needed the sound. We were harsh. We shouldn't have said what we said. But the truth is still the truth. You don't need this place. You can't do the stairs in 5 years. So, what if we do it this way? You move out now, into something with an elevator, and we move in here and kind of preserve it. We'll keep it for the family. We'll keep it for yourselves, I said. We'll keep it for the family, he repeated, just louder. You're talking about stealing without calling it that? I said. His face fell like I'd hit him. Dad, Jenna said, standing in the doorway. Because life is a stage where people arrive in time to deliver the line they didn't know they were waiting on. Lucas and Kayla need you to say yes to something. You shouldn't. That's different than needing help. I'm going to have a baby, Lucas said. Does that change anything? It changes everything, I said, including the fact that I want you to grow up before you carry someone. He left a beer on the table and the cap in a tiny, angry circle. Later, I picked up the cap and put it in the jar with the coins because metals are what life is made of, and it's good to hear them clink sometimes. The first foundation check went out a week later. Catherine sent a picture of her boys in navy coats, too big for them and smiles too big for their faces. I printed it and stuck it to the fridge with the magnet shaped like a tomato Nora got at a farmer's market in Boone in 2001. Dad, Jenna, said when she saw it, the way you say dad, when you remember why you loved the idea of fathers before you met anyone who had to try. This is the thing. Bigger than any house, I said. We stood there a minute, looking at someone else's boys in someone else's kitchen, like we were doing the dishes for luck. Lucas found out about the foundation from someone else, because in a small town, even confidentiality is a rumor. He stormed in on a Thursday with the energy of a man who thinks he can still reroute a river by yelling at it. So you're a philanthropist now, he said. That's cute. It's not cute, I said. It's what your mother asked for. We cut us out, he said. All the way to the bone in one sentence. No, I said. I cut you out of decisions about where I sleep. It's different. Put money in other people's hands and not in mine, he said. There it was. It's a sentence that had been waiting in his throat since he was 12, and I told him. He had to mow the lawn even if it was hot. Sit down, I said. I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. He did, which is a kind of miracle. You and Kayla can come eat here, I said. You can put your feet under this table and ask for advice and say no when you don't want it. You can take me to my doctor appointments when your sister can't get out of work. You can bring your child into this house and I will show them where your mother hung the stockings and where the squeaky floorboard is by the hall. How to open the back door with just the right push. But my money is not your plan. Your plan is your plan, and money is for the things your mother and I believed in. If you want some of it, show me you believe in those things too. He made a sound that could have been a laugh or grief. So what? I have to volunteer at a soup kitchen to get my father to love me. You have to be a person to get anyone to love you, I said. Meanwhile, I will always love you. I will never fund your shortcuts." He left. He stayed gone for a week. He came back with a look I hadn't seen on him since he was 18 and realized the world did not care that he had a nice jump shot. "Kayla's dad offered me a job," he said. "Sales for the flooring company. Base plus commission. Health insurance." "Take it," I said. "I might be terrible at it." "Then you'll be terrible," I said. "Then you'll be better. I'll be a father in 3 months," he said, standing at the edge of the carpet like he was afraid to get the baby all over the floor. "Get in here," said, and pulled him into a hug. He let me, he cried, into my shoulder like a man who had decided to breathe. That sound in my kitchen is the real estate that mattered. The night the Blue Ridge deal closed, Henry drove over with a bottle of whiskey that probably cost too much for either of us to be comfortable having in the house. We sat on the back steps where I sit with Tom and talked about the first unit they ever rented. To a musician with a drum kit and a half-sincere promise to pay on time. "Nora saved our tails," Henry said. "You know that, right? When the bank got snippy in '02, she brought the spreadsheet with the numbers that made that man shut up." "Nora saved everyone," I said. "Just catching up." Later that week, Allison and I signed a lease for the old branch library. We took down the metal shutters, we scrubbed the windows, we painted the interior walls, the color the paint card called soft linen, and Nora would have called Tuesday. We put up a sign that said the Dogwood Room, and underneath, in letters small enough that people have to come closer to read them, Nora's name. We filled the shelves with books from the library's storage and donations from every person in town who had ever heard Nora say, "You have to read this." We set up a small space in the back where there would be coffee and a quiet corner, a board with index cards where people could write what they needed and take what they could give. On the first night, a woman I didn't know sat in the corner and cried the way quiet people cry. And when she left, she took a card with a phone number that wasn't mine, and I said a prayer to the air that it was the right one. Jenna ran the calendar for volunteers because she couldn't give money, and she could give time, and it turned out time is a currency that spends well. She brought me a sandwich on Tuesdays and looked at the photograph of Nora by the door like a person looks at a lighthouse. Lucas came by with a stack of flooring samples. He set them on the table like gifts. "If you want new baseboards," he said, "I can get you the good price." "I want scuffed ones," I said, "but thank you." He held a sample up to the light. "Walnut," he said, like he had learned a word that tasted good. Kayla came in one afternoon pushing a stroller with a baby whose mouth looked exactly like Nora's when Nora wanted me to change my mind about something. She looked around the Dogwood Room and then at me and then at the baby like she would rather be anywhere else, but also couldn't help feeling something like awe. "I didn't get it," she said. "I still don't, but okay, fine. It's pretty. It's useful," I said. "You think you're doing something holy?" she said. But she said it like a person who had never been given that word to hold. "I think I'm doing what Nora asked me to do," said old man, she said, not as a weapon this time. "You're stubborn," I smiled. "It takes one to know one." In July, Jenna and I drove to the cemetery with Daisy's Nora's compromise. Flower Ann sat in the grass. Jenna put her head on my shoulder like she did when she was 5 and asked if the moon would always come back. "She were here," Jenna said, "she would have given us that look." "The one that means you get one more chance to say that differently?" I asked. "That's the one," Jenna said. "I'm sorry, Dad." "Me too," I said. "I meant it," she said, "about the house that day. But I didn't know what I meant." She took a deep breath. "Still want you to move someday. When the stairs get too honest. But I want it because I want you to stay, not because I want this." She gestured at the ground, which could have meant money, time, the way the world measures worth. "We'll cross that stair when we get there," said. In September, Lucas called me from the hospital parking lot at 2 a.m. "She's here," he said, crying. "She's here, and she's loud, Dad. She's perfect." "I know," I said, because babies arrive as if the world has been waiting only for them, and also like they are a thing that happens every day. "Bring her by." He brought her by the next afternoon, tiny and furious. He put her in my arms like he was handing me a secret. "We're naming her Nora," he said. I asked Kayla. She said yes. "It's a big name," I said. "Good one." The week after, Kayla came into the Dogwood room with baby Nora in a carrier and looked like she had been awake for 3 years. She went straight to the corner, sat down, and fell asleep with her mouth open. People came in and out around her like she was a present under the tree that no one wanted to disturb. When she woke up, she cried and then laughed and then cried again. "Okay," she said. "Sitting on the floor because mothers don't stand when they don't have to. I get it. The thing, the bigger thing. Bigger than any house," I said. "Because when a line is true, it's good to say it out loud." She nodded. "I was mean," she said. "I was someone I don't like." "Me too," I said. "You can come be better here." In October, on a bright, careless day, Lucas backed the service van into my mailbox and then spent 2 hours fixing it, cussing. Under his breath, he did it right. He swept up the mess and then stood back and admired the straight line of it, like he had built a cathedral. "How's work?" I asked. "I hate people," he said, then laughed. "I like them more than I did. It turns out listening makes commission happen." "Who told you that?" I said. He rolled his eyes. "Mom, we scattered Nora's ashes on the mountain where the rhododendrons make tunnels at Craggy Gardens, because she asked us to, and because it felt like an audacity to think we could keep her anywhere less wild." On the hike down, Lucas lagged behind with his daughter, asleep on his chest, and cried in a way that finally sounded like his own voice. Winter came and went like a thing that knows it is not permanent. The Dogwood Room became a place people used for book club, for grief group, for teenagers doing homework, for a Tuesday night group of old men who play chess and pretend not to notice when one of them looks at his phone and weeps. The foundation sent checks that made lines in budgets that I never saw, and papers get filed in places I will never go. People sent notes with numbers that were small and stories that were big. On the board by the coffee, a card appeared. Need. Someone to sit with Mom on Thursdays so I can get groceries. Under it, another card. I can. On the anniversary of the day I met Nora in the pharmacy where she worked, Mr. DeMarco called. "The second tranche is complete," he said. "Everything's set. You're all the way through it now." He meant the financial part. "The other part, I think, will run like a river under every day until my last." "Thank you," I said. "For not saying too much when you could have." He laughed. "Mrs. Hart told me you appreciate a man who knows when to hush." She knew me," I said. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from a law firm in Raleigh. Lucas had retained counsel. They were appealing something they could not appeal. They asked for documents they were not entitled to. They wrote "Dear Mr. Hart" in a font that tried to be respectful and failed. I took the letter to Allison. She read it without visible irritation, which is why I pay her. And then she wrote a response that used words like spurious and unequivocal. She had me sign something with a pen that felt heavier than it needed to be. "You can still have dinner with your son," she said, as she slid the letter into an envelope to be sent by a person in a suit who will walk it up a flight of stairs. In Raleigh, this is paper, that is people. Lucas came by that night. He looked sheepish around the eyes and brave around the mouth. "I thought maybe I could scare you," he said. "I thought maybe you'd break." "I have," I said. "Just not the way you mean." "I don't want to be this guy," he said, putting his hands on his knees and looking like he was asking a coach to put him in, even though he'd been benched for good reason. "I don't want my daughter to see me lose at this." "Then, stop playing," I said. "Come do something else." He took off his hat, put it on the table, turned it, put it back on his head. "I'm sorry," he said, and the air in the room changed shape. We ate chili. We watched a basketball game on mute. He told me about the job, told him about Mr. Jenkins from the chess group who had buried his wife of 60 years and now wins at chess because he can't afford to lose at anything else. Lucas went home to a small apartment with a baby who would not sleep. I went to bed in a house that still smelled like the lemon oil Nora loved. Spring returned, as it does in spite of us. The dogwoods on Sycamore burst into white, like someone had thrown confetti into the trees and then suspended time. I sat on the back steps with Tom, who brought coffee and a story about the new chief of police in her crusade to fix streetlights. Like the city depended on it, which Tom insisted between grumbles. You did good, Tom said. not looking at me. I did what Nora told me, said. Same thing, he said. It has been a year. The house is still mine to walk through in the dark without hitting my toe. The stairs still tell me the truth. I look at them and think of moving and then don't, and then think of it again and then don't. Moving is a verb I'm not ready for. The foundation is a noun that moves all by itself. The Dogwood Room is a place people stand in and say okay out loud and then sit down. People come to the back steps and bring me coffee and listen with their whole bodies like it matters where. I put my hands when I talk, sometimes. When the house is quiet and the light through the east window turns the dust into a galaxy, I take out the leather portfolio and the list with names and notes and write a new name in my own handwriting and a new note beside it. The list is never done. It grows like a garden. It gets messy, feeds people. The day Lucas laughed and told me to leave the house, that day lives in me like a seed. It was small and sharp and meant to grow something ugly. It didn't. It became a tree with a bench under it where people sit. It became a room with books. It became a little girl named Nora, whose father holds her in a chair by the window and sings made-up songs. It became a mailbox Lucas fixed right the second time. A mop Jenna put away when she realized she didn't have to clean her grief. It became the truth I learned too late and just in time, that what Nora left me was bigger than walls and windows, bigger than any house. She left me a way to be who I said I was in the privacy of my own mind, out loud and with witnesses. If you think a house is the center of a family, you are not wrong. Houses hold the smells and the echoes and the pencil marks. But the center is also where you put your yes and your no. The center is a list of names in your pocket and the stubbornness to keep showing up. The center is a key under the glass at a dressing table, and a bank that holds a box, and a friend who knows how to hold both a pen and your hand, and a son who learns to apologize, and a daughter who shows up on Tuesdays with sandwiches, and a woman whose wind chimes still throws rainbows on the kitchen wall when the late sun hits it right. I sit in that light and say her name. I tell her that the boys have coats, that the hospice nurse cried when she got to go to the conference, that the Dogwood Room smells like coffee and old paper, that Lucas sold flooring to a woman who said she didn't want any and then bought the good kind because he told her the truth about what would swell in a flood, that Jenna laughed today at something she didn't think she'd ever laugh about, that Kayla took a nap in public and woke up kind, that baby Nora points at the dogwood and says, "Snow." I say her name, and then I say mine, trying it on, getting used to the shape of a man whose children told him to leave, and who stayed because the woman whose hand he held for half a century left him a secret bigger than any house, and because even when they found out, it was too late to stop it from becoming the thing it was meant to be.